Okay, thanks for your patience.
Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. It is September 19th. This is our regular meeting for the MCS Board of Directors for the month of September. Yes, this is a Zoom meeting. We have some new faces tonight, which is awesome to see. Welcome, Executive Director Henry, for your first Mosier Community School Board meeting, and also McKenna and Emily. Thank you, your new board members. Thank you for being here. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
We did not have any public pre-submitted comments tonight. So that brings us to item number 3 on our agenda, which is changes and approval to the agenda. And I can post this to the screen if you want. Julia, did I get the changes we talked about added in? It's been a pretty hectic couple of last days for me, so I want to make sure that we talked via text about adding some other things to the agenda.
If you post it,
and I'll share it.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, let me know if one of the things we had were start times of bus service. We talked about adding, which is on there now, which was on initially as well, and then the bond measure we got in. So I believe it is as it was sent out. I just, for some reason, I remembered adding a couple other things, but maybe maybe it was just added in and we're good.
I think meeting dates was one.
Yes, thank you. Meeting dates.
Yeah, and the annual calendar, in addition to setting our regular meeting dates. Sorry for the fussy baby. And then the one note, I mean, we're overdue on a read through the policies, but if that's not here, I don't think we can do that since he's leading that. So we'll probably have to table that.
Yeah, I have an update on that from Thad, so he's working on it. So I'll it won't be a reading, so it'll be an adjustment to item number 9, which is that policy update reading. It'll just be a policy update that Thad sent an email that I'll read. All right, so thank you. So we have meeting dates and annual calendar. Those kind of go hand in hand, which we'll add here. Let's do that after Tiger's Den at number 14. Is that all right? Okay. So I will stop sharing this for a moment. All those in favor of the agenda and the updates as noted, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. The agenda passes. I don't have a consent agenda from the ESD. I know that Jamie's working on that, and so we will have that for our next meeting. We also have some good news, which will come later from Matt Henry about our business manager position. But I think those will go hand in hand with the onboarding of a new business manager, kind of the download from the ESD. There'll be obviously some time there for them to get on board with all the stuff we have going on. But we'll be there to help out. With that, I wanted to say thank you to the ESD for their assistance. They're not done yet. I know that they've got a lot going on, but we have received a ton of assistance from them in regards to just accounts payable, HR help, just forensic accounting, just searching through emails and trying to help us move through this beginning of this school year. So thank you so much for all your help. And then we're going to have to skip the treasurer's report, I believe, unless we got one in email. 1 second. We have a treasurer's report that came in via email that I'll read really quick. It's from Avelia. And her updates are, we'll be working with Matt Henry and Jen Langley tomorrow in opening the new credit cards for MCS. Matt Henry will be added to the bank tomorrow morning. She's working with Patty to get the EFTPS access. 1 second. Sorry, I'm multitasking here. For revenue, Oregon taxes, payroll taxes and stuff handled. And then there was interviews conducted, and we're waiting to hear back on an update from Matt Henry on who will be offered the position and who accepted the position for our business manager. So that's our update from Evalia for the treasurer's update. And that brings us to item number 7, which is our MTA report. And just an update for our new members. This is generally, the agenda generally follows this format each month, but it has some adjustments. There's some constants that are on there, like the first few things, like the pre-submitted public comments, changes to an approval to the agenda, consent agenda, things like that. Treasurer's report, MTA report, executive director report, all those are are always on there. And then the committee reports and stuff like that. So aside from that, we add in each month things that are happening and things that need to get added to take care of whatever business is going on. But the MTA report is something that we hear every month, and we look forward to an update from our MTA. So with that, I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Dan. Mary Ellen is having trouble with her video, so it's going to be kind of interesting not to see her face. But I'll just start off by saying that the MTA has met for the beginning of the year. We had an orientation and a luncheon, and then we had our first overall kind of meeting for September. And the positives that came out from that meeting were the staff were feeling well supported. The staff have been taking any concerns to the admin and have felt heard. It is great to have Lisa Stevenson in the building working with kids on SEL or social emotional learning. It's been a big support for us. And we are very happy to have the bathrooms cleaned every day. They look great. So we have someone coming in and doing that, and it's just been wonderful. School staff and parents have commented on how open and welcoming our school feels this year. And that's just a nice way and a nice energy to have at the start of the year. And when issues or problems arise in the day-to-day logistic, teachers are finding quick fixes and implementing them with positive results. So that's been kind of nice that, hey, we see this problem arise and we're able just to kind of like, here's a solution, let's move on with that. Margaret Elkin, our ELD teacher, she will be planning a Day of the Dead event for the school. And that's something that we can look forward to, perhaps even a movie that she has in mind. Some concerns that the overall MTA had were it's hard to feel settled when the classrooms are still being constructed. So there's still some kind of just unsettledness about that and feeling a disconnect. Materials are still needed, such as whiteboards, corkboards, and books. And then certain grade levels are feeling the crunch with the number of students in their math classes. And we're wondering about capping students and grade levels instead of class sizes in certain classes. So this is an ongoing concern that we're having with meeting our kids where they're at. I know that Mary Ellen had some responses from the staff members about.
I'm here.
She is.
Lisa and Mary Ellen, before you move on, can you say a little bit more about the math issues, just so I understand? Is it because of the multi-age, you're getting more kids?
Yeah, so like for
certain levels?
Second and fourth grade, I think right now, so they're maxing out at, because we switch for math. So Mary Ellen, Mrs. Holmes has strictly second grade and I have strictly third grade. Well, she's maxed out on her class size at 23, where I only have, 17. And so that's, becoming an issue of seating and materials and, you know, an amount of support that's going on in a single classroom for those kiddos.
And are you dividing the kids based on like who would be naturally falling by ability or by who would naturally be a second grader or a third grader? Does that make sense?
Yes, naturally by what grade level they are assigned.
Okay.
So we're not, we haven't shifted into anything different other than that right now.
I think to add to that, Julia, and I apologize, I don't know why my picture's not coming. I've tried like 4 times now, but I am here. And I believe that we will revisit that. So if there's kiddos in my class that will really benefit from 3rd grade, certainly we'll do that shift. And did that last year for reading. I had a 1st grader in the 2nd grade class. So we're really open to looking at that. It's just, today was the 10th day of school. So we're still really kind of getting to know our kids and getting them into routines at this point.
And that's something, these problems or concerns that we're seeing arising, we're really meeting them head on and trying to find solutions, working with everybody on staff to try to find solutions for them. So it's been great. And then Mary Ellen, do you have the report from the teachers?
I do, yes. So Janet Baker wrote that they have been spending the first 2 weeks getting to know new friends and learning routines. And they just started a classic literature unit on Monday and have read Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And they're learning about characters, settings, story progression, order, and working every day with fine motor and strength and hand-eye coordination. Billy Frazier in K1, reported that primary classes have started learning about space. They're also learning routines of our classroom. They're getting to know the students and teachers, and it has been great getting back to school. In 2-3, we're working on settling in, getting to know each other and settling into routines. And we continue to welcome new students into our classroom. I know Lisa had a new student last week, and I got a new student today, actually. So it's wonderful that we just keep getting new kiddos into our school. Anne Marie in 4-5 reported that the school year has been absolutely wonderful so far, that the staff at the school is incredibly dedicated, supportive, and hardworking. She's celebrating the positive and nurturing environment that has been created for the students. And there's a bright, warm energy that fills the school, making it a great place to learn and grow. She's thrilled to be a part of this team and is very excited for the rest of the school year. And Sarah Grace wrote that this year is incredible in 4-5. Students are working well together and doing a nice job fitting into this routine of school. Lisa Stevenson, who is our new SEL person, but has been in the school for a long time. She wrote that she's been busy getting to know and understanding some of the students' needs. She's also working to create a schedule, which will likely include drop-in times, scheduled one-on-one talks, and small group discussions. And Melina Hogue wrote that she's getting to know the incoming 6th graders and building relationships with them, thoroughly enjoying getting to know them. She is feeling like there's a lot of disconnect with her fellow teammates in middle school due to the being in 3 locations, and that has been difficult for her. And she wrote she's chomping at the bit to get back into her portable. She misses her home. So I think that transition has been hard, not really being able to settle into that room and make it her own, but she's looking forward to when that portable is all ready for her to move in and get settled. Savannah wrote, in middle school humanities, they have gotten off to a good start. They have begun novel studies in each grade and are hard at work to improve comprehension and vocabulary skills. This week, they're going to start a project-based history unit as well. They're still working and waiting for a few of the materials for history studies and whiteboards in the classroom, but looking forward to getting them soon. And then I got another text recently from another fellow staff member. And I really feel like this is something that a lot of people are feeling. Really, I'm pressed and happy to have Matt on board. Really appreciative that Matt is open and honest about things, about his experiences, and he's always willing to listen and learn. And I think people feel incredibly supported by that and the team that Jen and Matt have made so far. So really, I think Lisa probably spoke to this too, but there is a lovely feeling in the school, and people are feeling happy to come to work, and there's a really nice camaraderie.
Thank you. That's wonderful to hear. You know, it's what we are all hoping for, and it's the aim is we should all, you know, be able to come to work and enjoy coming to work, you know, despite challenges, which there are always going to be challenges at work, but it should be a place where you like showing up to and enjoy working with your coworkers. And so it's great to hear that there's that positivity. I hear the unsettledness with the classrooms for middle school. We're working on it. You know, it's one of those things that there's a lot of projects going on right now. And
I think people understand that, Dan. I'm sorry to speak over you.
No.
I think people totally understand that. I think that we're just really encouraging people to be honest and open and being able to be transparent with the board too. So,
well, and we'll keep working on that. You know, we hear you, and we're doing our best. And I do appreciate just the feeling of wanting to be in those classrooms and having it be settled. So we definitely appreciate that. Marie, your hand was up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask regarding Melinda Ho, because she's the most, I believe, displaced staff member currently. Is there anything you think that we should know that we could do, or I don't know. I really feel for her, and as facilities chair, you know, if there's anything we can do in the short term to make her situation easier, I would love to know and try to help work on making, maybe, I don't know, just off the top of my head, I'm imagining keeping her. I'm sure that Dawn is communicating with her, but if she needs more communication about what's happening, I don't know. Love to hear your thoughts.
We did check in with her because that was one of the things, like, what could we do to help alleviate some of that unbalance for her right now? And she's a real trooper. She just is like, well, I know that there's an end in sight, and I'm just going to hold out, and there's a silver lining, and it's coming. But we did reach out for her as an MTA and say, like, how can we support you? How can we make this feel better for you? And so that it's kind of, you know, not so much, you know, up and down for her. But yes, we will come back to her with that information, and then maybe she has more ideas. So
yeah, or feel free to let her know that, you know, I'm here to listen, and that the board appreciates her patience and stoicism.
thank you, Marie.
Sorry, I was muted. Go ahead, Julia.
I just, I wanted to thank you all for the report. And I heard also a note in there about needing certain things for classrooms. The particulars of those I don't know, but I would just encourage you all to let Jen and Matt know. You know, we should get those things hopefully resolved. There's whiteboards or corkboards or supplies that are needed. And then I also wanted to recognize, and this is something I haven't, I apologize for not having thought about before, but that there's a space here in these meetings for the MTA to report out. But I want to also recognize that we have staff that are not represented by the MTA. And I just wanted to wonder together about whether or not there was a way to include the rest of staff in the report. It's very helpful to hear how things are going. And we have kitchen staff, facility staff, special ed folks, and something for maybe Matt and Jen to think about, but I wonder if there's a way to compile a report out from the rest of the staff too, since we are such a small community school.
Thank you, Julia. I think it's a great point, and something that obviously Matt and Jen can work on and come up with a solution for us. Go ahead, Jen.
I know I'm not really supposed to say anything, but in terms of Melina, sorry, something I think which would be really helpful when Hillside is completely ready for her to move in is just help to get her in there is something I will end up requesting for her.
Certainly, yeah, and I think I don't want you to feel like you can't speak. I don't know where, I think that you're always welcome to raise your hand
Thank
and have any input. You're a big part of the school, so we appreciate your input.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for the MTA about their report or anything else we've talked about? Okay, that's going to bring us on to item number 8, then, which is our executive director report. And I have a copy I'll put on the screen. We all have been pretty used to how we've kind of digested the executive director reports in the past. This will be a change going forward, and it's something that Matt will, I think, refine and get used to. He obviously has experience doing this to other boards, with other boards in the past, but being that our school is different, it'll be one of those things that we adjust over time, that in a way that helps him get what he needs to get across the board, but also just as I'm sure that over time will change. So I just want to just say that we're welcome. We're happy to have you here with a new report style, and looking forward to listening to it. So I'll get that up on the screen here in 1 second.
More coming down, or is it, okay. Okay. Great. You say when down?
Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, good. That's the important part. This template, I can tweak it. It's more of a template I used with administrative teams, but I'm going to keep adapting it. The top part, though, is sort of important as far as my perspective in education. I mean, this is an honor. It's an honor to be a part of impacting young people. So no matter what connection I have to a school, this goal is to develop, no matter the level, effective teams which can directly impact our student achievement. And in this case, we're talking pre-K to 8. It's a wonderful school. I'm learning things every single day. As I listen to you guys, I'm sitting here thinking, if I had been here a year ago, I might understand a little bit more of this, but I'm learning things every day. And I appreciate the attitude, the perspective. I've yet to run into anyone who you sort of immediately sense sort of you're just wondering, are they, I'll be honest with you, I'm fairly direct with people, are they in the right profession? And there have been many people I've run into in my career like this. So the MCS staff loves kids. They want to work together. They're not afraid at all of data to help us make the best decisions. So I really appreciate everyone's attitude. We had a great meeting today, looking at some of the data and beginning to discuss how to come up with some strategies to build upon each level and complement each other. And the folks already came up with an idea that's been used for years, but I think it'll be very helpful, and that is PLCs and portfolios, so that we can really have some important information that will follow a young person. Professional learning communities is what PLTs are talking about. And really, I'll just be fairly brief here. I would like to highlight what Dan alluded to earlier. A young lady named Erin Sanderson tentatively accepted the position earlier in the afternoon, and we'll send her the paperwork tomorrow. I do want to be sure, obviously she's signing the information. We're still working with her on her goal to be more of a hybrid model. However, I talked with her last week for quite a while. We are going to expect, and she's very receptive to, given the time period that the predecessor has not been in that position and all the great help from people, I did still want her to realize the urgency of her being here at least a couple days a week to begin with, maybe 5-6 weeks. And she's very receptive to that. She even, at first I thought we were miscommunicating, but I think she'll be here 3 days a week. And we reached an agreement on your posted salary. So really excited about that. And she is a person known to come in, own her position, and really deal with things pretty rapidly. So knowing the business end of it in the minimal way I do, I am really looking forward to helping her, getting her the support she needs. So that was exciting. Down towards the agenda there, as you move down, I'll have some version of this in every report where we're talking about an item, a task, and the needs. And so, as I've already said, with Jennifer's help, I'm still assessing what I'm going to call our systems, and where I can help this year, the whole system, including you guys. I mean, every part is important for a healthy school system. Where do we need to face some things that maybe could be a challenge, but yet why put it off? I mean, why would we wait if students in their learning, they don't get to, retake fourth grade over and over again? They have one shot at these different grade levels. So we just, as professionals, will work towards helping them to the best of their ability. We're looking, especially just in the last few days, we're looking at some of the initial grade or the testing that's been done by Crystal, our reading specialist. And we had a nice open meeting today to discuss that. We will continue, and Jennifer could speak to this because she helped develop it over the last couple of years. I think some challenges, but as I was sharing with Dan today, we're talking about a very small percentage of our students are presenting some fairly significant challenges behavior-wise. So Jen, do you want to speak to the responsive classroom protocols? Because they're not designed just for those type of kids. They're designed for the whole student population.
Sure. So we've had responsive classroom at the school actually since I began, but when I was first there, we did a full day training on that. So all the teachers this year hadn't gone through that. So we did a full training for them on responsive classroom, which was really wonderful. They all loved it. So the idea is really having the teachers work with all the students on positive reinforcements within the classroom and the social emotional aspect, and really teaching kids how to understand their emotions and how they're feeling, how to deal with them and handle them. And that's just, it's been a part of Mosier, but I think now every single teacher is so on board, and they're all working amazingly together on really helping all the students within the classroom and really teach them how to interact with each other, and teaching them about kindness and honesty and respecting each other. And which is a big part of responsive classroom, is teaching them how to interact socially and understand their emotions and how to deal with them. And I think that's just going to be a huge part of improving our behavior this year, and teaching kids about kindness and how to be kind to everybody all the time. So that's kind of a big part of the responsive classroom.
Thanks, Jennifer. And whether it be a matrix, a behavioral matrix, a PBIS type system, I think we are, in my opinion, because I just got into it, the staff as a unit is moving forward, trying to find the best responses to behaviors that we want to guide and redirect, so that kids are able, you know, for example, today, end of the day, talking with a teacher, first grade, and she's talking about how if she can get some of her kids literally to pick up a pencil and hold it correctly, she's made some good progress. So as you guys know, I mean, many kids are, some of them, a small percentage, are just have some special needs. So we'll continue to look at sort of a school-wide approach. And what I'm always been impressed by, and I'm impressed here, is educators that I have interacted with in this would be my 35th year technically. The educators that are always lifelong learners themselves model that attitude with the students. And on top of that, they are always open to continual improvement themselves. So I'm excited because I think that's the potential here. And honestly, I was just going to say, you guys have really shown, I have never been connected to a system with so much physical change, let's just say challenges that you've had to go through in the last year and a half, 2 years, but yet here we are. And with the tenacity of everyone, the board leadership, the teachers, here we are at the beginning of another year of learning for young people, so that they can keep moving forward into middle school, into high school, and on to careers with critical thinking abilities, reading. So it's exciting. The only other thing I would say there is sometimes these type of challenges could really discourage many people, and they might exit the system. And so very impressive, the tenacity of everyone.
Can I pause for a second there, Matt? And
yeah.
Jen has her hand raised, and I also just want to get any, as we go through the agenda items, I'd like to open it up just in case anybody has any questions for clarification.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jen.
So I just want to point out too, so one of the big things about responsive classroom is focusing on the positive behaviors and not the negative behaviors, is really constantly reinforcing those positive behaviors. And one of the things, I know, Matt, I don't think you've gotten to the monthly assembly yet, but a big part of the responsive classroom is not giving student awards to few students, but the focus on the monthly assembly is really about building community and celebrating everybody, all the students, and creating more of that Mosier community family with the students and the community. So that is going to be our focus of our monthly assemblies this year, and not awarding students for various different things, but we want to try to focus on like everybody reading more and just celebrating students in general.
Thank you, Jen. Julia, you have your hand up.
First, I'd like to say that sounds great for the assemblies. And I just like the idea that you guys are verbalizing of bringing, making this kind of this approach really more community-based. And I wonder if there's a way to communicate out to parents and to the board, like, this is, what we're doing at school. This is how we are handling, tough moments. And so that parents can practice, and guardians practice some of these things at home with their kids, and also understand the consequences that their kids might be, or the types of exchanges, just so there's consistency. I would appreciate, I like knowing, how will, if my kid has a tough day, how will you handle it? And how can we have some consistency at home to do the same thing, potentially. And so some of that communication about this is what we're doing at school. And I'm not being super efficient with my words, but I think you understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Matt, are you okay if I start the answer to that?
Yeah, have at
Okay.
it.
Okay. So Julia, thank you for that. One of the things that that all of us, the staff, have decided that we are going to do one monthly newsletter, but it's going to be much more meaningful, and everybody will, all the teachers, we will all have a part in that. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was have a section and let the parents know what are some of the things we're reminding kids of, and we're trying to teach kids about, safety issues, like how to behave on a playground. And when there is a behavior issue, what are some of the things we're focusing on, and asking the students, remember to do this and that, or and to let parents know what are the things we're working on in school, so that they're able to work on those with their kiddos at home. So that is something we're going to do. And our goal this year is to make our one monthly newsletter really meaningful and informative to parents, not so they're getting bombarded with tons of newsletters, but one really valuable, meaningful newsletter that I'm hoping more families are going to actually look at it and read it and see the value of it.
Be great. Jennifer and I we think quite a bit alike, and I was about to mention the newsletter and that collective approach. It's a great idea. Resources for parents, so that the young people 24/7 are really hearing these same concepts. So we'll definitely explore maybe a chunk of pure parental resources to help and weave into what we're trying to accomplish. I think that's a great idea. Really, the other remaining things on that page are about climate. And we've already talked about the assemblies. I'm going to keep pursuing one thing that I need to understand better. And Jennifer and I can talk about it. I can talk to other staff. And that is, I think we can basically do all the above, but I'll have to find out, as in an assembly. I think there is something about a peer who notices another peer who's been awarded, let's say, a behavioral award or a academic award, that I'm going to just explore it more, but I think we could do all the above. In other words, have some awards that are more of the classic, I guess, type awards. Because really, in my career, sometimes I've noticed that you have this huge middle average, and when some of those kids literally pop up into a higher level, it's super important for their confidence to be recognized. So we'll keep working on that for those assemblies and the newsletters. Facilities, I don't know, Dan, if I believe we have a board member this is more of her area. So if you want me to talk about facilities, I will, but I'd rather defer to what you'd like.
We have a facilities committee line item down further in the agenda, but you also have a different view on facilities than we would from the board side. So I do welcome your input there. Marie, who in my screen is just above you, is our facilities member. She's in charge of facilities with Dawn. So I would play it, I guess, between the two of you and how you want to proceed, Marie.
Marie, do you want to go first?
Hi, Matt.
Hi.
So yeah, I was designated facilities chair and had the pleasure of working with Dawn and getting to know the needs of the building and the campus better. And I did see this. I am going to check in with the OSBA about the possibility of capping committees, but I believe that committees are designated to bring people together to make recommendations, not hard decisions. And that my understanding of board committees is that they need to be public meetings where everyone can attend. That said, I'd like to work with Dawn to see when we might start regularly scheduling our facilities meetings. And as board chair, I would conduct the committees similarly to a board meeting where we have an agenda and we would take minutes and we would give those minutes to the executive secretary to post. And we would, as a collective, work on visioning for the facilities of the MCS buildings and campus and make recommendations to the board. So I'm gonna check in with OSBA because I understand that there may be some concern among the facilities committee about you know, what is a good number, but I will look into that, and I hope to get in touch with you and Jen and let me know how that sounds.
Yes. Yeah, that is great points. And I'd encourage you do a little research there, but I would say I think you're totally on track. In my experience, I'd give you an example. 4-day school committee. I was encouraged to research it. So in the previous district, it got to be up to 14 or 15 people. So all buildings were represented, board members rotated. So there was no need to be concerned about a public meeting. I mean, they would just have one member on the committee. And so they might, like you're doing, Marie, report back out to the board from their perspective. But I, in my position, would compile the results of the committee, and that would go back out to the board for discussion as needed. So I think we could truly have call it a rotation or whatever, as long as we had, you know, we're not going to be having a public meeting. And it's critical because a board member can be there speaking, of course, for themselves, not the board, and just add some real insight. And you know, the number 6 to 8 I was sharing with Dawn, but you guys really, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope to meet with all of you soon. Sometimes I think when you start a committee, or in this case, maybe we're restarting a committee, it is good to reach out and try to get people in for initial information. And then exactly what you said, Marie, you do make clear in the first meeting, this committee is going to meet for this reason, for these goals, for this amount of time, maybe for short term, for long term, and take a recommendation. And that is upon, you know, like myself and the board to make those type of decisions. Committees are critical, but you know, you're right. I think the folks that own the responsibility have to actually own it. So I think that's very exciting. I think you guys have had a facility committee before, right?
Yes, there was a facilities committee, and I think that you know, I think it would be it would behoove the school to include the community and make people feel welcome to come. And I feel I'm actually excited to open it up. And, you know, there's a lot of work to be done. And if people want to come and volunteer and help out, I think, you know, like I said, the committee is there to make recommendations. And of course, the members of the committee who are most involved and knowledgeable about the condition should really be heard by the community. And I think it's a great way to bring the school and what's happening at the school to a greater awareness to the community. So
Yep.
I would like to make a note there just about some stuff that's been discussed so far. In the past, we have treated it as a public meeting, and so it was noticed and minted, like Marie has said. But I would like to hear what OSBA has to say, Marie, and what your research finds, just so we know how to proceed appropriately. But yeah, that was my only comment there. I just want to make sure that whatever that's the way it had been done in the past. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. I just know that that's the way it's been done. So I'd like to hear from them on how they recommend that we conduct those meetings.
Right. Yeah, I had a superintendent advisory committee as well, and I might try to establish one here. And again, a board member would rotate onto that, and it might be the business manager in town, the chief of police. But I agree, Dan. It's worth confirming with those about if there is some new stuff, really, I guess, because I think if you don't plan a meeting, that anyway, that's different procedural things. But okay, and again, I just want to say, coming out from the outside, you really need to compliment yourselves for what you've put together here, because the amount of facility changes and the effort and the pain, you know, people are going through, I think is going to pay big dividends. It might be a year or two, or who knows, but it's just a more sort of seamless system. You drive by out there and you see this little community, and the effort being made is pretty impressive to make it a really attractive school for everyone. I was just going to add, I was talking to a person today who's quite familiar with the Dalles and the Hood River system, and how often parents are literally just jumping around from one to the next, trying to find the right school, the right fit. Dan, if nothing else, I was just going to say, there you have it. The security, I mentioned the security officer there in the beginning, because you might already know this, but I believe he will be rotating out. It's not absolutely for sure, but second or so week of October. And if that's news to you guys, he shared that with Jennifer and I, and maybe you as well, Dan, I'm not sure. He'll have a replacement. Yeah.
Matt, there's a change in that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he just called me. So Thursday, Friday, Eric's coming in and shadowing him. And then Monday, Eric will be there full time and Kenton will be gone.
Okay. Well, that accelerated that. Okay. Any questions there?
That happened last year as well, when he had some other projects to attend to, and another one of the employees came out. So
okay.
I think most in the school setting are familiar with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. As you guys can see, it looks like we will have 12 to 13 cameras. I'm looking at one to my left right now. It has 10 cameras on it, and we'll have 2 more. Super helpful. 3 or 4 of us will be, and we will work on a protocol if we find that we're not looking at them, and we sort of realize, hey, wow, nobody's even looking at those. But mine's right to my left on my desk. I also, 3 weeks ago, just thought, after trying to utilize the phone system along with the radios, that security wise and safety wise for our kids, it behooves us to enhance our phone system to make it a more intercom type concept. So we're waiting on a bid. We'll communicate with you guys as to, and it's not going to be some huge number. So for example, there'll be hopefully a speaker that'll be out near the Gizmo facility. There'll be strategic speakers, and the phone system will indeed be frankly, a go-to, because like if there was some situation, there is often a lot of talking over each other on these radios. And teachers, of course, will be encouraged to have their volume up on their phone. And if we ever had to use them, it's going to broadcast across the campus. I have nothing else really to say other than I look forward to drills that are, and I don't want to scare the younger kids or anything, but I mean just drills that are not like, hey, we're going to have a drill at 10 a.m. I want folks to feel comfortable on what they need to do, but then I want to practice sort of a real world approach.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Matt and his presentation for the ED report? Go ahead, Julia.
I'm just wondering if Matt and Jen have connected with D21 in their safety meetings. Dan, have you made that connection?
I have not.
Okay. Well, there are regular safety meetings that the district holds, and it would be great if Jen or Matt could attend. It seems like a very sort of a critical place to share strategies across the district and just share information about what's going on and connect with the rest of D21. And they're held in the Dalles, and Dan and I will connect you.
You know what? I think I've seen an email. So that is a goal to connect with the committee or group.
All right. Thank you, Julia.
Sorry, you're not talking about the crisis team. You're just safety.
It might be.
Because
it seemed like a pretty good group.
Last year I was involved in that committee. Yeah.
Okay. That's a good idea. Very, very good idea.
We can check in with Cindy and just make sure that we have that covered. Any other questions for Matt for the report? Go ahead, Marie.
Oh yeah, I think last year there was quite a bit of concern about the drills, especially the active shooter drills with the younger kids. And you've probably already considered this. But I think it would be great in that newsletter if there might be some information about how those drills will be conducted for each of the grades, just so the parents have some.
Great point.
How they can talk to the kids when they come home to talk about,
Yeah.
Because I think the drills are made or conducted in such a way. My daughter personally, came home and was excited about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, that major drill, I think, Marie, that you're talking about is later in the year, and that's when the police are there, and that's our more full-scale drill. I think that's the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes, definitely not going to just spring. You're right. We would prepare, use the teachers, and just make sure that it goes in a way that's not going to totally bother the kids.
Yeah, I know mine certainly came home with varying degrees of understanding of it and various communications along the way about something that was going to happen, but they weren't sure when or what it was. So, I'm not positive that they totally understood, but they're also young.
Yeah.
So that's to be expected.
Okay.
All right. If there aren't any other questions, I'll move on in our agenda to number 9, which is our policy update reading. And I have an email from Thad that I'll read about that. Make sure I'm unmuted. Okay, so Thad has said he's apologizing for missing tonight's board meeting. This is his son's first home game playing for the Dallas High School varsity soccer team, and it's conflicted with our board meeting, and he had to choose one or the other. He hopes everyone understands his choice to watch his son play tonight, and that's part of the work-life balance that we all try to always attain. Thad has been recently interacting with Spencer Lewis at OSBA about getting our MCS policies up to date. We're going to start with Spencer sending him update recommendation packets spanning our last policy update, which is about 2.5 years ago. Thad will review those recommendations, and after scoping the work required, choose among the following options. Option 1 will be a self-implemented task of preparing the material Spencer provides to him into a list of policy changes to be considered for adoption by the board over the course of the next 2 to 3 months. If the work required for a self-implemented approach is too daunting or potentially too error-prone, you'll work with OSBA to prepare a fee-based engagement with OSBA to bring our policy manual up to date. And Matt and I talked about this today in our meeting, and in the past, and you can go ahead and speak in, add anything you need to, Matt, but in the past, he's had experience where you'll have the policy update possibility from OSBA that you pay for, or when the policies are sent out, the board and the ED work together to decide which ones to read and implement, which ones are really important. They come out in a hierarchy of need to be changed. You could possibly change them, or maybe, these are totally voluntary or optional. And so they come out in this kind of hierarchy of importance. And so then the ED would generally read through those and present those. So in the past, they've been emailed to our ED. We'll work through to make sure they're emailed both to our ED and also to the board. And currently Thad's working on that. Did I address that appropriately, Matt?
Oh, yeah, you nailed it down. The only other thing I would add is I have seen and witnessed very healthy discussions with board members about policies. I mean, because they're always based back in ORS law or legal issues. So it's always good. And so you have lawyers making these recommendations. So it's very healthy, but there are a lot of them. So if we're behind, it'll be doable, but we'll have to sort of be strategic on how to approach catching up.
And we may need to call a special meeting just for that, just to take care of the policies so that we're not trying to shortchange anything else.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions about the policy updates that we need to do? If anyone needs any history or anything else, let me know.
I just wanted to go back and confirm with Jen asked if it was the county crisis meetings, and it is that is the meeting, and they're facilitated by Cindy Miller, and it's the North Wasco and Wasco County, and it's the meeting, and it's the county crisis team.
Okay.
But we'll make sure to connect you so that one of you can attend.
Yeah, I am on that. We will need to get Matt. I don't know if that's the multi-tiered team. I don't know, because it is a crisis team. I think that's what you're talking about, Julia. Yeah, I am on that, and I'll reach out to them to get Matt on that.
Great.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Julia. All right, that brings us to our next agenda item, which is our Department of Energy grant update. And all board members should have seen an email sent out from Brent that kind of describes the asks that are being put out there. And Brent, I see you're on here. I'll pull up that document so that we can go through that. It's actually your email that clearly goes through kind of the asks that are there. But as a general summary, we have, when we first put the grant in, when Brent first wrote the grant, we were thinking that we'd be able to use a lot of our ESSER funds for it. But the ESSER grant funds and the DOE grant funds don't mix well together. And so we have to kind of realign that. There's some other things in there as well. So let me pull that up and screen share it so you can have some context there for everybody, Brent. Go ahead, Marie.
Yeah, I'm just going to excuse myself from all ODE conversations and action items because of the conflict of coincidence with Matthew, my husband, being the OPM. So I'm just going to darken my screen to make it real easy.
All right, thank you.
Great. I guess two things. One, quick, I just want to give a quick general overview that for the last few months, Dan and I have both been in communication with DOE as a part of what they call their negotiation process. I don't know how much negotiating is happening, but we've certainly been preparing a lot of documents. We've prepared a community benefits plan, we're working on a National Environmental Policy Act statement. We've given them a draft cybersecurity plan, and there's probably a few others that I'm forgetting. Had a good number of calls, good number of trainings. Jen's been on some of those with us as well, and I'd say generally things look like they're going as we would hope, and they've basically, we're now talking about when they expect to be completing our grant award, which I take as a good sign. Nothing to suggest it's going to get derailed. I had a frank conversation with them in terms of the potential conflict between Marie and Matt. They said, hey, we totally understand. I'm gonna document it in an email to them, and they'll send one back saying, sounds good, you've met your obligations. So that is all good pluses. A couple of really high level things just to keep in mind. One, lots of the things that kind of started out, like the HVAC project, which started long before my time and got this ESSER money. It was about $360,000. That might have seemed like a reasonable amount a couple of years ago. It's not even close to a reasonable amount today, and it probably wasn't then. So, so as we dig further, and I don't think that we're necessarily at the end of it. So I want to be really clear. The numbers that I sent you in the budget, I think they're the kind of best reasonable estimate that we have right now. One of the first things I'd ask for the board to do is say, go forth, prepare RFPs for each of the components of the grant so that we get hard components back. The only thing that we don't need to do an RFP for, because we've already done two and they got no responses, was the HVAC system, which inherently includes the electrical upgrade. And so those are the two parts of the project that, based on Dan and I's discussions and other prior discussions, it seems like we can move forward without additional RFPs. The other specific RFPs would be one for the solar and battery backup. We've met with two solar providers now, Scott Sorensen locally, as well as Elemental Solar in Portland. They gave us the quote that the thing was based on. Scott is doing a similar size project, actually a little bigger in the Dalles right now, that has an integrated battery system for the, I forget, I think it's like county emergency services or something like that. So he came out, we hopped up on the roof with Matt and others, took a look at it. So I think we'll get a couple of responses back on that RFP. We've got need to put out an RFP for windows. We have had one estimate for windows, which was I think about $40,000, just shy of that, from Bob's Glass in the Dalles. Neither Matt or I or others who look at that think that's probably a super realistic price for redoing the windows on the whole north side of the building. But we'll see. We had another window estimator come out a couple of weeks ago, and I'm working on getting them some more specs. So we'll have some RFP for that. We would have an RFP for that, as well as the insulation. We've already got a good quote, and I think a really strong company to do it with a super reasonable quote. But we need to, still go through that RFP process. And then finally on the EV car chargers, would be another chance to get some RFPs. We've been working with Land Electric. They've given us some pricing, but we need to kind of go forward. So I guess without going too far and in sake of time, I'd maybe throw it back and answer any questions, see if there's any things we should talk about. But if everyone is okay, I'm happy to draft the RFPs. subject to maybe the business manager, the new business manager looking at them. It's pretty, I use basically the model that the school's been using for years. I've got one already drafted on for the I already have all the draft stuff, core language, and would just have to modify them for each of the RFPs.
Okay, so we can vote on these down the line. Thank you, first of all, Brent, for all the work you've done. You've given yourself less credit than you deserve and given me more credit than I deserve, for sure. I'm here to support the work that you're doing, and I really appreciate, as a volunteer, somebody who's working full time, the amount of work you're putting into this. It's incredible. So please, so thanks for doing that. As we go through these, I guess some of my questions are involving the timeline and the needs. So as far as our cash contribution timelines, the decisions on net cost refunding contributions, ESSER contributions, and things like that. So as far as our budget item number A, for example, with the 94,000 in cash as our overall project cash contribution, what's our timeline on making? Is these decisions things that we have to make tonight? Do we have a knowledge on how long we have to make decisions about this stuff?
Yeah, so any final decision to allocate the cash doesn't have to be made tonight, but we do have to have a budget under contract that we send to DOE, which is what they base our award agreement on. So to me, I'm just not comfortable going to DOE saying, hey, here's our budget, unless the board has agreed, hey, here's our budget. Now, practically, like no money gets spent until there's a contract, until there's an RFP, we've got a clear plan, and the board agrees to spend the money, right? So this isn't agreeing to spend the money, it's agreeing to say, hey, this is our budget, assuming A, we get the grant and the money's there, and then two, that we've got bids we like, everything else lines up. But I guess stepping back to maybe answer your timing question, not a lot of physical work would happen until spring or a summer. The big work, the HVAC work, etc., that's wouldn't happen until really summer next year, right? It's not practical while the kids are in class. It really, we would be kind of a crazy rush to try to do it on. We talked about maybe trying to do it on different breaks or spring breaks, and it's too in depth, and there's no reason to rush it. The one exception to that, which isn't part of the DOE grant, but is the ESSER funded electrical service upgrade, that could, and I hope will, happen over the Thanksgiving break. That a little bit dependent right now on, we're going back and forth with Pacific Power. Their main guy's been out of town for a while. He just got back. We talked yesterday. And if he can get the transformer, then Tito's ready to go with the service upgrade. If that happened now, there are some safety issues I mentioned before that to me just make getting that electrical service dealt with sooner rather than later a real deal. And that's kind of been echoed by the electrical engineers and others who've looked at the system. It is not something you want to wait on. So if we can get that going, that's already ESSER money. Any other money like the 94,000, that would be a fiscal year 2024.
Okay, so just let me make some clarifications here, just so our newer board members can. So if you look down here, can everyone see? And I can't see everyone on my screen now, so just be vocal if you can't see it. The budget item number C down here with ESSER 3 funds. There's some background there that we'll have to get into, but ESSER is another grant that we received 1, 2, and 3, and we're in the final phase of this grant right now. And of the final phase, some of it's been used for pre-K. It's been used for different parts of the, I think part of ESSER 2 was used for some of our annex upgrades that happened over in that property. Of ESSER 3, there's 363,000 of it, as it says in this paragraph down here, set aside for the HVAC project. As he stated in the email here, we can use some of it. We already have designated some of it for the electrical, and the electrical is being pulled out of the DOE grant, the electrical upgrades, so that we're no longer in conflict with different pots of grant money. the conflict still remains on the remaining $138,000 of ESSER 3 funds. And so in my discussions with Kara Flath, who's the CFO of D21, there is a mechanism where we can change the designation for the ESSER funds, but we have to apply for that change to make it happen. So what we could do, for example, is apply for ESSER to be, there are a lot of them are facility-based or safety-based things. And so we could apply for the ESSER funds to, instead of covering the HVAC, cover fencing or the ADA lift, things like that, that are still in line with our facilities projects and needs, but then frees up that cash to be applied to the DOE grant. So I just want you to have the context there about how that the ESSER funds relate to this. Initially, we had placed the ESSER funds in as part of our contribution in the grant. DOE came back and said that's not allowed. And so we're trying to maneuver in a way that is allowed under the system to still use that money in a way that's appropriate. Does anyone have any questions on that? Emily, I see you've unmuted.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. I don't have any questions, but when you get a chance, could you please forward this email to me?
Yes.
The Google Drive
Oh,
stuff.
I'm so sorry, Emily.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you.
Yes, no problem. I'll forward that. So, and Brent and I have talked back and forth. The 97,000 for item number, or 94,000 for item number A. In the grand scheme of things, and Thad is our, as far as budget goes and dollars, Thad is, as an engineer, has really spent a lot of time on this in the past. He's over the last few years been really engaged in the budget every year. I've been involved with him on that, but he definitely has a greater understanding of the budget than I do, as far as where the money comes from, our different pools of money, our savings accounts, various things like that. So on the outset, this is in the next budget cycle, and I don't feel like $94,000 is a lot of money in the grand scheme of our budget, but it's also something that I would like to have his input on. So I know, Brent, that you've spoken with Thad about these things, and there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of money moving around and a lot of things that need to be paid for. But a lot of the things, like Brent and I have already talked about, this is the result of not investing in our facilities for a long time. We've got a boiler that's over 100 years old, a burner that was put in the 90s. And so what we have is this, a building that we bought for $1 that we now own, but we own the maintenance to this building, which is really what we own, is the unattended maintenance that's been building over time, right? The windows that are leaky, so these are the things that they're being addressed in this grant, and it's a big bite out of our budget right now, but I think it's also the deferred maintenance that we haven't done in a long time. And so I try to keep that into perspective as, how this all plays into that and the need to have it done.
And the thing I would put, I talked to Thad about this, and specifically the $94,000 number, which I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I will, only because he's not here, and that makes it easy to do. He seemed to think that the 94,000 was reasonable. I don't want to say that that's his vote. I'm just telling you, he didn't. When he asked that I kind of put this all together in a big picture. I'm sorry he's not here, but totally understand the game. I think that 94,000, again, it'd be 7% of the total project cost. I don't think, like, I got a waiver last week that this budget was supposed to be due to DOE. I got them to kind of let us push it. They actually asked me, when is the board meeting? When are you going to get this? I told them tonight, and that we'd have the budget to them. That's one of the due things. I said by Thursday. So, I don't know, Dan, what if you want to hold off on everything till another board meeting, or there's a way to maybe rouse that. But I do think it's just to back up a little. When I've been kind of updating the board, and a little bit of this goes into the last administration, when Carol and Janet and they were talking about numbers. At times we were as high as 60,000 a year over 2 years, with that facilities portion. Like, if I'm remembering right, the annual facilities budget was something around $50,000. So maybe it's you know, obviously this is a big investment. You put in 7% and, you know, you get this big chunk out the back end. But, you know, that is the one thing I would say about this. I think the way I look at these four items, A, B, C, and D, one of them is cash that you're not going to, that the board, that we don't get back, but we invest. You know, the school's got no ventilation system. It's not that it has a bad ventilation system or an old, it has no ventilation system, right? So there's very few schools that can say that. And it,
Brent, I think, yeah, you're frozen there. So yeah, we don't have a ventilation system, and I'll just pick up where he was leaving off for a moment while he gets reconnected again. And that affects us obviously in the summer months when we have wildfire and smoke. This building is also it's a refuge place for if our community suffers some kind of disaster where we need to refuge and get to. And so this is really updating that and allowing us the ability to filter our air and condition our area. You know, there's no AC in the building, and so it's extremely hot in the summertime, and then it's really expensive and a big polluter to heat in the wintertime because it's not insulated appropriately and we're using a diesel furnace. So that is the cash contribution this year. I think what he was going to say next is there's this federal and state level incentive payments of $260,000 that we have to put in, but then we get back at the end. And so to me, there are loan options available, and I'd like to see what those look like. So instead of us putting $260,000 out of our reserves into this and then getting it back, what are the loan payments look like? What is that? What are our options there on that we where we would see that come back? I'd like to see what that payment structure looks like to see if that pencils out or not, rather than using reserves, because we're using a lot of reserves this year just on various projects that we're working on.
Yeah, I think that the difference is just that, and this is just from talking with DOE about what some of the other schools looking at. You would just be looking at the price of a loan, whether it's, you know, I don't know if it's somewhere between 7 to 9% or what have you. So multiply that times the, you know, 259, and I think that would be, you know, more just added cost kind of gets, you know, comes out of somewhere, right? It's not a recoverable cost. I think the challenge, though, where we're at right now is from the timing of the budget, and you maybe need to, you know, have some final numbers for DOE.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we need to, I think, be able to know whether or not we want to come from loan. If it comes from loan and it goes back to the school, that doesn't matter. Like, we don't have to tell DOE where it's coming from or how we get it, or if someone's rich uncle wants to lend it to the school. But it affects the overall budget, because if we don't say we're going to take advantage of the 250,000 and free money, then we have to, you know, pretty massively scale back the project. You know, it's fundamentally, we can't, it's just not the money. I mean, if you go to the Excel spreadsheet and you pull, you know, 259 out of the overall ledger, I think there's just no way to make it all work. I mean, and I don't know, you could, you know, knock off some projects, but everything I know about it so far about working with DOE, and they kind of things, you know, if new circumstances come to light, cost change, you know, money gets but it's just a lot of work. And, you know, better if, you know this now, but it sounds like some other schools that don't have the reserves are, you know, are looking at loans. Other school, you know, the bigger school, hey, we're just going to obviously put the money down and get paid for that timing. Just to go back to your question, what I understand is the IRS, and this is new, this is the whole ability for us to get a cash payment from the federal government was passed, whatever, 6 months ago or whatever, the infrastructure bill. IRS is still doing rules on it now. DOE is say, hey, yes, we read the plain language of the law. This says, timing wise, the IRS says we should be able to process it on a timing similar to getting your individual tax return. So a number of weeks, not a matter of months, but that window for when you can exactly how quickly, that window openings, it's just not, it's not set in stone yet. They're just doing the policy. So I can't tell you that, but what I think, yes, I envision, and part of this is from talking to Dan and others, is just, look, before we would ever spend that money, those assurances would have to be in place. So before, again, we've got, until next spring,
Hey, Brent.
figure out all the details.
Hey, Brent, maybe if you turn your camera off, we can hear you better. You're cutting out a bunch, and I feel like everything you're saying is really important to be able to hear.
Is that better?
Maybe, maybe not.
For us living out in the country, we all got varying levels of internet.
Yeah, sorry about that. I can try going back to my phone here and seeing if
it's pretty good right now.
I think you're making yourself really clear, Brent, too. I think that seems like a really good use of our money and the reserve we do have. It's hard. I'd be hard pressed to find a better use for that.
Right.
Especially if we aren't having to pay interest. So
certainly,
especially if there's a use it or lose it situation, which it sounds like, we do not want to get caught up in bureaucracy. So.
And I think that's, to me, it's just, so what it seems like tonight is the approval of the budget. We don't have an outlay really until the project starts. We know that we're on the hook for the 90 some odd $1,000. But it's the budget approval is what the DOE is wanting to see, is that we're looking at, can you all see the Excel spreadsheet on the screen? So they're looking to have us approve this, and they, he's gone through and he noted that in there, kind of the costs that we're bringing in. And then the total cost of the project, but the majority of that is coming from these grants, from the DOE grant. And so, I'm just wondering as we're going through it, my thing is all about timing. When do we need to pay? When do we need to know, okay, whether, as we approve this budget, if we approve this tonight, do we then start looking at our options for loans and what that costs and what our other options are out there, just so we have the full picture. Because if I just hate to get through this project and also just, reduce our reserves down, and then, okay, how long is it going to take to get repaid by the feds? What's our timeline on that? I want to make sure that we just know as much as possible ahead of time while making these decisions. And I don't disagree at all, McKenna, with the points you made, or the points Brent has made about, these are necessary things that we need to do. We've, as a school, none of us directly, but we've put this off for way too long, and that's why we're in the position that we're at. And it allows us to invest in our, besides our students being our biggest asset, the building is our biggest asset as far as actual, things that we own.
And Dan, I think you're right, and I'm certainly happy to, help however, like if there's resources from DOE to look at loans or look at other, options like that. But I do think you're exactly right. It's like, it's approving the budget. It's approving the budget framework. I would say don't approve the budget if it doesn't, feel like something we really want to do. But I do think it's different than, it's not approving any specific expenses, because, we may come back, let's say the final HVAC project costs an extra $100,000, and we may have to cut something else, or we may have to, reshape the project. There's going to be, what we have with DOE, just to kind of flag the process, is after we do the RFPs, we get back all the real, what I call, the real numbers. We then crunch the numbers again, come up with an updated budget. We get Department of Energy to approve that budget. And only then do we have the authorization to actually go forward and spend any money. So they call it their go, no go decision.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think DOE gets a go, no go decision. I think the board still has that, decision as well. And whether it's loans or any other
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I think that gives us the option, where we, tentatively approve this tonight, and then also spend the time between now and then to really dive deep into our budget with some, board members that are interested in doing that, and come up with, okay, here's exactly where it's going to come from. Here's exactly how we're going to pay for this. Here's our long-term plan. Here's our plan to build back our expense, or our buffer that we have. And so, the school has options for those things, but I want to make sure that as a school, we're responsible as a board to make sure we're being fiscally conservative and careful with what we have so that we can last for the long term. So I just want to make sure that, I don't see any problems here in approving this, personally for me. I don't want to speak for the whole board, but for me, I don't see a problem here. But I want to make sure that as we move forward, we make a path where it's really clear what pot of money is coming out of for us, and how much we have left over afterwards while we're in the interim waiting for it to be paid back, the $260,000 chunk. And then that's also when we have our updated budget, when we get our RFPs back on what our actual costs are, what that really looks like, because we have kind of what we think it's going to cost now and what we're going to put out as far as a cash outlay, but that number could, it most likely will go up. And so I just want to make sure that we're just, really aware and clear about that. Like any construction job, they all have creep. It just happens. One of the things that may help us right now is that the construction industry is, in my opinion, in like a similar 2007, 2008 situation where we have a bunch of jobs going like gangbusters, but things are cooling at the moment. So we may have some more competition for some of these bids than we would have had a year ago. And that competition may help us get a better price than we would have necessarily. So that's the only upside to the downside, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Does anyone else have any questions for Brent? And I can go back to your email if you want me to, Brent, whatever you need there.
Well, I just to kind of, I guess, refocus. I know you guys have other stuff to do too. The kind of things I think I need tonight are, one, decision on if I've got the green light to work with I don't know if it's the new business manager or Don or whoever has in the past put out the RFPs, but to get those out, that's kind of decision one. And then we can get real numbers. Decision two would be the budget. I've kind of threw in the email. Emily, I don't know if you got a copy of it yet, but I can just forward it to you here. What's your email there?
I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it right now.
You got it. Okay. Yeah. I sent it to your old email too, Emily. And then the third thing is more just a quick note. I found another a grant, EV charger grant that looks like we could get up to $17,000 from ODOT. It's all spent except for a reserved portion for rural communities. The deadline is in mid-October. It's like tailor-made for us, and the only condition is it has to be spent within 270 days of getting it. So I think that might change our order a little bit on when I didn't plan on doing the EV stuff till the very end. But with the modular building going in, it sounds like Pacific Power thinks that the new transformer they're putting in for the modular would be able to power a couple EV chargers on that east parking area there, which would be the first EV chargers in Mosier. And I got an estimate from Land Electric could put them in for $6,000, and it sounds like we could get that's including everything. And then it sounds like we could get up to 4,250 of that back. So that would I included that grant number in there with, I think, an asterisk or something saying we haven't applied for it yet or got it. But I feel pretty good. And I talked to Energy Trust today. They're like, God, this is perfect for you guys. They ought to give you more than that. So, we'll see. But assuming nobody objects to me applying, I'd like to do that in the next week here and try to lock that up too.
That sounds great to me. So you have some draft motion language you put in here, and I'm just going to read through it really quick. And then see if, did we break this down for your item number 1, which was the RFPs, or is this for the secondary?
The RFPs, I didn't put any motion language, but
Okay.
it could just be to approve Brent to move forward with RFPs and work with staff to issue RFPs for the proposed DOE grant project work.
Before I make a motion, does anyone else have any questions? Okay, and we have, since Maria is recusing herself, it's going to be myself, Emily, McKenna, and Julia tonight voting. Okay, so I'll make a motion that the board directs Brent to work with MCS staff to post RFPs for the work outlined in this email. Can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you, McKenna. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed, please voice your opposition. Okay, motion passes. Do we have any further discussion on the second motion, which is an approval of this project budget so that it can be sent into DOE? And I can't see everybody, so make sure that you are vocal if you have any other questions. Okay, I will make a motion that we approve the proposed working budget of $1.417685 million contingent on finalization of grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Energy and final contracting decisions by the MCS board to support project work and take advantage of federal and state subsidies. We'll approve the cash contribution of $94,000 towards project work, $259,980 of funds that are expected to be fully repaid to MCS in the form of federal and state renewable energy and efficiency incentives, and the $18,000 of staff time as an in-kind contribution. To the extent that ESSER 3 funds can be reallocated from the planned HVAC project to other projects, MCS has approved funding through its general or reserve funds, and that the same amount of general or reserve funds could be allocated towards the project work included in the DOE grant project. Sorry, it's a long motion, but it covers everything we've talked about here. Can I get a second for that?
I second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you. That motion passes as well. Brent, is there anything else you'd like to cover tonight?
Nope, thanks, and welcome, Matt, to your first, or I guess now second board meeting, and I look forward to catching up with you next week, and thanks for the support.
Thanks so much, Brent.
Brent, thanks for all of this. That's awesome.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you all for making it easier, and I really appreciate everyone's work, and I'd say Jill Maynard and Matt and everyone have really been I won't put Dan on the spot anymore, but it really has. I've felt like there's been a lot of support, and I think we're going to get this thing across the finish line and have a pretty cool project to show for it.
It's awesome.
Thank you so much. All righty, take care.
All right, for our agenda, that covers item number 10, which is our Department of Energy grant update. That brings us to item number 11, which is school start times and bus service. Julia, I had your name queued in for that one. This is a kind of a discussion for the board, but go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, this is something that I've raised before, but I wanted to revisit, which is that Mosier has a very early school start time, earlier than most of the local schools, in large part because we are constrained. My understanding is we are constrained by the availability of the DALS buses. And in order to have our kids arrive before they need the buses back to pick up kids in the DALS, and they reuse the same buses, they've got to come pretty early. And I'm cognizant or just sensitive to the fact that increasingly we have more and more kids coming from the DALS to attend our school. And those children are waking up at 5 something in the morning in order to catch the bus at 6, shortly after 6 a.m. in order to be at our school. And that just strikes me as an equity issue, and also potentially a behavior problem where kids are not well rested when they're coming to school if they're getting up at that hour, and just tough on families. I think the schedule potential, and I can't speak for the families that are most impacted by this, but I am curious to take, I would love to just do a survey of the parents and gauge their interest or concern level in this with the school start time. And if the school start time is a major issue for families or concern, then I'm gonna have to grab my little one who's crawling around. Then so my proposal would be to start just by surveying the families and asking, hey, is this a big issue for you in Spanish and English? Our times, and would it be easier on you if we started later and your kids? And ask staff as well. And then if there is interest in starting a bit later and sort of shifting our schedule a bit later, then working on the bus problem. And I don't have solutions for that yet, but it seems like it must be, like it would hopefully be surmountable. And I've heard that there's large costs, but maybe we can revisit that. But first I want to make sure that this is actually something on people's minds besides my own. I'm going to grab my kid, but I'll be listening one second.
Anyone who has any input for the question and kind of topic that Julia has posted, please feel free to speak up. I personally, I agree with you, Julia. It makes it difficult. Our schedule also makes it difficult for us to do after school stuff. I mean, just the offset time puts us, kind of out of order with everything else. So, I would bet that it does impact a lot of families.
Got a question, Dan.
Go ahead.
Has this topic ever been raised with District 21?
It's not been raised formally, to my knowledge. I think it's been one of those topics that's been talked about back and forth, but I think that I don't believe we've ever polled the families to see, okay, what's the interest level in getting something changed, and then figuring out what that looks like. Part of our holdback on our pass-through funds is, for administration, but also for the busing. So our funding model is that the pass-through funds from the state come through D21, our sponsored district, come to our school. Part of the holdback, the 11% holdback that the district holds on to, part of that goes towards paying for our busing. So then, as Julia brings up, we look at the issue of equity and what our children are being asked to do to get to school every day. And, to go back to your question, though, no, I don't believe that it's been really approached in this manner before.
Yeah, and it's a smart insight to survey parents as well as staff, probably, and then approach District 21 and see what the information tells us.
For sure, yes. Thank you for that clarification. Go ahead, Marie.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, sleep definitely impacts, learning and behavior. So I think it's a very relevant discussion to have with parents and staff. And I also recently reviewed the budget for the North Wasco School District, and I looked at the transportation, because currently, one of the proposals in building a new high school is to offset the transportation that some of the high schoolers have to endure. Some of them are being transported to the Columbia Gorge Community College. Some are also taking classes at the Innovations Academy. So they're getting bussed around to sports, and the district itself is, I believe they approved $1.8 million in transportation fees. So just under $2 million for transporting the youth in the district. So the transportation cost is high, and of course we're just on a small route. So I think it might also, I don't know how the board feels about reaching out to District 21 to see, what their discussion currently is about transportation. And if they're thinking about, I know they have new buses, And there are currently 2 buses serving Mosier School. So maybe finding out about, what the transportation is looking like for the district, and if there's any discussion within District 21 of also addressing, this early start times for all students in the district.
Just for clarification, Marie, with the new high school with the bond measure, were you saying earlier that they're cleaning up a lot of that transportation with that's kind of built into that bond, or what? I just want to make sure that I understood the tie-in for the new school. The point.
No, I guess I was just bringing that up because during the community advisory committee for the bond planning with the school district, that topic was raised, that one of the hindrances of the current high school is that it's overcrowded. And the athletic facilities are not on one campus. So the kids have to get bussed around. And so their learning environment and day is, affected by having to move around. And so it was just a discussion point of, what could improve the learning environment for the kids if there was just one high school that could accommodate all students and keep them all on the same campus and not have to go to different places. And I guess I brought in I would imagine it would affect the transportation budget.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you. Any other discussion on the school start times and bus schedule and service that we have?
Can I ask, Dan, do you have not a vision, but that would obviously affect the calendar, the schedule. So is this the goal, more of a long-term shift possibly? Because I could certainly reach out to Lisa, who's the transportation person there, and just sort of ask her some general questions.
Yeah, I think it would be very helpful for us to understand a bit more. I think a lot of us are, we're all new at this, whether it's being on the board or finding out more information about all these things. So the more information we have, the better it would be for us. I know that our early bus drop off here is also picking up high school kids and taking them to the Dalles as well. So I know that that's part of it. I think it's complicated, and I think that's part of why we have what we have. But it would be awesome to figure out what our options are, and if we have options, if we what that looks like, and especially as Marie alluded to, if they can get this bond measure passed, that's obviously a long-term thing and the new high school. But if that cleans up some of the funds from the rebuild of the high school and makes it so there's less busing going on, and that maybe opens up more budget, more room in the budget for a more equitable busing schedule for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it's not just the morning that's impacted, and Jen might be able to speak to this better than I can, or any of the teachers who know the details better, but it's the afternoon activities as well, and how long kids can stay on campus and what's available. And as a working mom, I can say that 2 o'clock pickup time is really hard on some families. So being able to offer after school activities, but then making sure those after school activities are not just available to kids that live in Mosier or have parents who can pick them up, but are also available to kids that live in the Dalles whose parents can't come and pick them up. We want to make sure those things are equitable. And my understanding is there's some constraints there because of the busing.
Yeah. So prior to, I think last year was the first year, maybe the year before that, we always had a 3 o'clock late bus. And then they switched that, and we don't have that anymore. And the bus doesn't come till 10 minutes to 4 o'clock. And we used to have a pretty robust after school program from 2:15 to 3. And that has been a huge issue for a lot of families that the bus doesn't come until 4. And honestly, the bigger issue is that we don't have staffing to stay to wait for the bus till 4:50. That has been a big issue. And then we used to have teachers running clubs, and a lot of the teachers don't want to stay around until 4 o'clock. So that the busing has been a pretty considerable limitation for us in morning and afternoon.
So is it something that, sorry, just to build on that, Jen, is it something that if we identified a number of students that wanted to be involved in after school programs, but obviously I also identified a need for volunteers, we could reach out to, the community and families and see who has the capability of doing that. Sorry to Julie, I'm not trying to sidetrack the bus thing, but I think they go hand in hand, the after school programs and the bus. I was totally unaware that we have a late bus like that that's that late.
Yeah.
So
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I witnessed that. I witnessed that firsthand last year, being part of the Strings Club. And when the class ended at 3:15, there were kids, and the TAs have, they can't stay there, and folks there need to be members of the community there, probably at minimum. But I think the after school goes hand in hand with busing. I think it would be great to continue the discussion.
Yeah.
And I think another part, Dan, so before, when we were paying staff a stipend for after school clubs, it ended at 3. And now the need is that they need to be there till possibly 4 o'clock in order to monitor those kids.
Right.
And last year it was either Janet or I, which really, it pulled us out of a lot of important meetings and various different things, that honestly, that as an administrator, that 2:15 to 4 is like a really valuable time for administrators to get work done. And we were having to monitor and, the kids outside for the bus, because we didn't have any TAs we couldn't have them stay later.
Okay. Thank you for all that clarification. It definitely helps me understand the issues much better. Does anyone else have any questions, or Julia, do you have any other points you want to bring up?
No, I just don't want to sit on it too long, and I'm not sure who takes the lead. I'd be happy to work with Jen or Matt, or let Jen and Matt work on it, or however folks want to do it. But I do think getting a sense both on the front and the back end of our day for what, it's similar. We did a survey a number of years ago that really prompted us to start a pre-K program, because there was a lot of interest in the community in that. And I know I filled that out. My daughter attended the pre-K program, and I was grateful for it. And I think similarly now is a good moment to see, is the bigger problem the early start time, or is it the afternoons, or is it both? And where should we be focusing our energies and working with the district, and then going, and maybe it happens parallel track that we're talking to the district and trying to get a sense of what the possibilities are. But I'm curious for this group's suggestions and thoughts on how we move forward. How do we gather this information and start to make some decisions?
Jen and I can certainly work and send you a couple of questions, Julia, that you feel would work for the survey, or you send us a couple. And I just had a quick question for Jen. Why was the late bus terminated? Was there a reason?
It wasn't our choice. It was the bus barn. Lisa made that decision. We were not part of that. We were just told.
Okay. So we have no idea even what their rationale was.
No.
Okay.
I mean, Janet may have known, but I don't know what the rationale was.
And then just throw out, has there ever been a discussion of the school leasing their own buses?
I know that years ago that was brought up, and my understanding was some of the concerns were the liability, the insurance you would need, and then who would drive the buses. And for me, the thought of who would drive the buses, you could see if there was a staff member that would be willing to get their CDL to be able to drive the bus. I think that could be one solution, but we would have to look into the insurance and if the bus broke down, who can repair it and things like that.
Oh, yeah, economically, it'd have to make sense, but
And I asked that question before, Matt. I'd have to go back and look at the recording, but there was at one point, this has been looked at once, at least once before, and the cost was not in the bus. The cost was in staffing it and the insurance for it. But I still wonder if there's a way to get creative. I mean, D21 has insurance on their buses. Could we own have a designated Mosier bus that lives in their fleet? So that they're putting it under their current insurance. I wonder if there's just a way around that problem, because I think, maybe we can help them purchase one more bus or, use one of their old buses, or I don't know.
Yeah.
we are glad to look into that a little bit. What do we have to lose? I mean, it sounds like quite a restrictive issue.
So
We can get a grant to get the first EV bus and have it charging at our new EV station while kids are at school.
There you go.
that'd
I
be
did
awesome.
look into grants for EV buses, and there are some, but you have to have a fleet of at least 15 buses. And I sent it on to
Well-
D21. I don't know how many buses they have, but I did pass that on to Cindy, and it is something that, those grants are increasingly out there.
That's interesting.
So to go back to Julia, your first point, how do we start? It sounds like the first steps would be a survey of parents, and also concurrent with that, reaching out to the bus barn and seeing just kind of why we are stuck in what we're stuck in right now, and what are our options? Where do we go from here? Does that sound like a good start?
Yes.
I would just suggest maybe before getting too far into the conversation on options with the district, starting the conversation, figuring out like information gathering on why we have it the way we have it. Then later on talk options once we know a little bit more from our family community. Because at
Awesome.
that point we can be more creative with options.
Thank you, Emily. I have a feeling that you're going to be very instrumental in making sure that we have smooth delivery, and that'll help me a lot.
I'm a process person.
Yes. All right. Any other points of interest on this, or anything anybody else wants to add before we go on to the next topic? We're getting there.
I don't know how many people watch these meetings, but I would just encourage anyone in the community who has an opinion on this to submit a public comment, send an email to Dan or
Please
I,
do.
or reach out to Matt or Jen and let us know. I mean, this is just an area that I'm trying to take the temperature of the community on.
That's great. The only other thing from me would be who is actually going to draft up the survey. I heard Matt say that he could reach out to Lisa, but what about actually drafting a survey?
Oh, yeah, there's two tools to do that. We could come up with a survey monkey, whatever.
Oh yeah, I'm more so I'm sorry. I meant like the questions.
Well,
Okay.
Who
so they're
takes
not leading. Is that what your concern is?
No, I just am trying to clarify who has the action item.
I don't think it's been assigned. Matt and Jen, do you feel like you need board support to have that survey written and then sent to you to be able to send out, or do you feel like you can handle it?
I think we can handle it. And yeah, we've done so many surveys, we could handle it.
Okay. As always, if you feel, in your day-to-day that it's something that's being just too much, please reach out to us so that we can help make it happen.
Thank
And
you.
I would encourage you to also run it by Avelia and make sure it's also in Spanish. I think those are families that I'm particularly interested in reaching, who may be disproportionately impacted. And so making sure that we have it in both languages and it reads smoothly. And that may also mean sending home a paper copy and not only doing it electronically if we're getting a low return rate.
Good point. Thank you. Okay, I think that wraps up school start times and bus service, the discussion there. That was a great discussion. Thank you. It brings us to item number 12, which is the Dalles High School bond measure. And Marie.
Hi, everyone. So I joined the Community Advisory Committee last year in June of 2022. And there was a really incredible turnout of folks in the community. Over 60 people attended meetings, and in 2019, the North Wasco School District did a facilities assessment survey, and what they found was that all schools were overdue for repairs. The Dalles High School is 83 years old and has been, due for upgrades probably for the last 40 years. It also has a boiler like Mosier School. And anyhow, all the schools are in need of upgrades, including the most recent built middle school in the Dalles. However, it is currently in the best shape of all the schools. The former Watonka High School, which is now housing the Innovations Academy, which has an alternate learning program for kids in the school district, was rated to be in the poorest condition. And then the second poorest condition went to the current Dalles High School, which is located on East 10th Street in the Dalles. It was originally constructed for a student population of 400, and the current student body is now over 800. So there's overcrowding issues. And as was discussed earlier, regarding HVAC systems and lack of HVAC systems, temperature affects cognitive ability, it affects memory, it affects behavior. And when learning environments are not comfortable, you see a lot of negative impacts on learning and on behavior. I know that Harvard Kennedy School conducted research in 2018. They surveyed 10 million PSAT takers, and they found that air conditioning increased for each 1 degree Fahrenheit increase, the amount learned by students was affected by 1% over the course of the year. And so anyhow, I don't want to keep everyone here for long, but the current state of affairs is that the Dalles High School is overcrowded. It has a cafeteria which can't adequately serve its students. If you stood in line to get lunch, you probably wouldn't be able to get served. Hence, the reason for a lot of high school students going off campus to eat lunch. There are 26 points of entry in the school. Because there's no HVAC system and no air conditioning, a lot of the doors are left propped open in order to introduce airflow. And of course, as we all know and have had many discussions about, increased points of entry, and it puts the students and staff at risk. The school district is proposing a bond measure of $140 million, which will be on the ballot this November, asking residents of Mosier, Rowena, and the Dalles to support the construction of a new high school. And it will come at the tax rate of $2.73 per $1,000 of assessed value. And of course, you know, this is a burden on taxpayers, and I personally think there, in the nation, we could find a better way to fund the construction of new schools. However, this is how new schools are built, through taxpayer funding and people wanting to invest in the future and pay things forward. So I'm here to ask if the board would consider voting on endorsing the bond measure. And this endorsement I sent via email would be a means for the school district to see, you know, who is supporting, who's behind, you know, this bond measure. So I'll leave it up for discussion. If anyone has any questions, I'm here to answer.
I had a question. Have they attempted the bond passage in the last 5 years, or have they tried this before and have they lost pretty badly?
Yeah, the last time a bond measure was proposed was in 2018. And it did fail.
Marie, I have a question just on whether you've confirmed that school boards can make endorsements of this nature. I'm just, it's not clear to me.
Because Mosier Community School is a public charter school, and we're not board members of District 21, I'm actually able to talk about it. I'm not a district employee, and I'm not on the board of North Wasco School District, so that's the reason I can be involved in talking with it. And I can verify with OSBA just to be sure. I could run it by Kristen Miles. However, I think that it's fully legal to do so.
A really quick Google search suggests we can't endorse candidates, but I don't know about these sorts of measures. I would feel better just confirming that. I mean, maybe others know. Maybe Matt, you've had experience with this in the past. It's not clear to me.
Worth investigating. I'm trying to think of the word you would use, and that would be the, you know, whether it's an endorsement or, and then of course it would make sense to do more or seek more understanding to achieve a unanimous. I don't even think a vote would be necessary, but it's worth looking into. But you certainly wouldn't want to endorse it with half the board maybe not wanting to participate.
Yeah, Marie, I'd be more comfortable if we checked with OSBA, and also if Thad and Avalia were part of the vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Thank you, Julia, for bringing up, and Matt for bringing up those points.
One other positive there, if this was endorsed or whatever by this district, those type of supports and decisions certainly help in discussions about busing and things like that. Maybe not in a huge way, but they certainly are not a negative.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good point. I think that, you know, probably the majority of us look forward to that and would support it. But I think it's important that we do find just what the legal ramifications are. I know, at least through my work, I'm not allowed to, you know, and you brought it up, Marie, you're not an employee of D21, but it's kind of a gray area because we do get our funding through D21. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. And so that clarification from OSBA or PACE would be great. Any other discussion on the Dallas High School bond measure?
So then assuming that we get that clarity, then next time we would just bring the same topic up and then be able to do, okay.
Yes.
Great.
And if there's anyone who didn't get the email about it, I can forward that. Marie, I didn't check on the email if it was sent to the whole board, but if it needs to be, I can forward that back out. Just it's the Dallas High School. There's a couple attachments to it.
I had sent it out to the 5 board members or
Okay.
for in August. And I believe I sent it to Emily and McKenna. Did you get the?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. All right. Thanks for that. The discussion about the bond measure and that update. I'm looking forward to hearing back on what OSBA says so we can voice our support. That brings me to item number 13, which is Tiger's Den, how to sign up for McKenna. I think this is just not clear to all parents how to be involved in the Tiger's Den. And so do you mind just taking a minute and talking about that?
Yeah, no problem. The Tiger's Den is kind of like our PTA, but it's beyond that. There's grandparents, there's community members with no kids that come and participate and volunteer with various activities. We have great involvement, but we can definitely use more. There's some new roles to fill. And so what we'll do is we'll have a meeting on Monday at 5:30. So that's September 25th at the playground. And anybody can come. We'll have forms to fill out. It's first just a volunteer form, and it does include a background check that you have to fill out every year. So if you were a volunteer last year and you haven't signed the form yet, please get one either from Daphne or we can probably mail it, but I do think it has to be brought in person for whatever reason. And so some of the roles, just to give you a sense, is we do popcorn and pickle. We have volunteers for picture day. That's coming up on Tuesday of next week. We're going to have reading store, which is prizes for when kids do a great job. And then we have other community events like the Made for Mosier, or even fun runs and lots of different opportunities for people to get involved. And typically we've met at after school. And so on Monday, we will talk to everybody who comes and find out if there's a time that works best for everybody, so we can get as much involvement as possible.
McKenna, if parents want to get involved in the school and volunteering, is it through the Tiger's Den that they do that? So
yes, and that background check. That's right.
Okay, thank you. That's just the clarification there. Does anyone have any questions for McKenna on the Tiger's Den? Go ahead, Marie.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thanks for taking that on. It's a huge, important role. Thank you.
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay, well, all parents who are listening and anybody else out there, if you want to get involved, please contact Daphne for the form, and that way we can get you into the list of people that want to be involved in the school. Thank you, McKenna. That brings us to our last agenda item, and we've touched on some of these topics already. But first is facilities. These are committee reports, sorry. Facilities with Marie. I know we've talked a lot about facilities today already. Go ahead.
I'm just going to remind you, you added an agenda item for the calendar.
Thank you. Yes, I did do that. So item number 14 is meeting dates and our annual calendar. And I know we have some OSBA training on there that we need to make sure we have on the calendar. So generally our meeting dates are is it this third Tuesday of every month? Yes, third Tuesday of every month. The only difficulty I sometimes have with that is that my schedule changes every week. So some months are harder for me than others to make. For example, the 17th of October, which is the third Tuesday, I work that day. I'm more than willing to pass the baton to Julia if she wants to run the meeting on a day that I have to work that can't be there, but I also am given the rest of the board's flexibility, happy to move the day to another day on the week if you are okay with that. But I can look out and project out most of the year and see what days I'm working. So if you want, I can send out an email of all those days between now and the next meeting, and we can hash it all out so we don't have to do it kind of live like we're doing now, and just say these dates all work. And we can add in the any other annual calendar things, any get-togethers or OSBA training that we have scheduled up. I know we have one coming up in October, right, Marie? OSBA training.
October 5th,
Okay.
Thursday at 5, excuse me. 5 p.m. Thursday, October 5th.
Okay.
If you'd like to have another training session, she's holding Thursday, November 2nd so that could be a TBA.
Okay. Let me pull up my past calendar here so I can give you an idea of all the things we're kind of looking for. So
Yeah.
in the past, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, there's sort of two levels to this. One is just setting the regular meeting dates, which are, our once a month meetings, with the exception of July, which we often skip unless it's a busy summer like this one was. The other is, we have it's now out of date, calendar that establishes sort of the rhythm of the year when we review a draft budget, when we approve, when we review state assessment results, when we discuss the strategic plan, when board elections are held, when there's an annual board retreat, those sorts of things. And I'm happy to send the new board members, if you haven't seen it, that model calendar that I think needs to be sort of updated and revised for this year, because we're already into this year. And I think we also need to impose on that calendar our permanent ED search timeline. So I'm cognizant of the hour, and as the timekeeper, would say that this is probably too big a project to complete at this board meeting together. But I think that we should have someone take on that larger board calendar. I'm hoping we can tackle the just setting the date for the regular board meetings so that the community and the MTA know. But maybe we designate a couple people to work on a proposed board calendar that we would then approve at the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, that works for me. And I have it pulled up here. There are quite a few items in there, including the ones you already talked about, that just keeps the board on track and makes sure that we, complete the things that we're set out to do every year. So we can send that out as kind of a placeholder for what it should be. This year is going to be a weird year. As Julie already mentioned, we have the ED search going on, which will kind of take the place of the ED evaluation timeline. And then we'll get back to that normal schedule next year with those kinds of things in there. Julia, did you want to try and set the year's calendar for the rest of our meetings tonight?
I think as far out as we can, that would be helpful. People want to know when our meetings are, and I know the MTA reps have also asked so that they can save those times and dates. I'm sure it'd be helpful to Matt and Jen as well, to know what evenings those are. It's not to say they can't be modified, but I'd be curious to hear from this group whether Tuesday evenings are a good night for you and your family to try to have. And then I'm happy to accommodate, Dan, if you can see out quite a ways on when you're working, maybe we can discuss just modifying slightly. So if we don't meet on that Tuesday, we meet on the Wednesday or the Monday.
Certainly. I'm looking out as you're speaking right now. So just trying to every single one of them so far is a conflict. So 2 questions looking out into the schedule. If in November, the 3rd week puts us into the Thanksgiving week. If we move it up the previous week, I work the 14th, which is the Tuesday, but the 15th is available. So I can just go in order if you want. For October, the 3rd would be the 17th. It's a day that I work. The 16th is open for me. If that's something that everyone's okay with, that's a Monday. October 16th. And again, if my schedule, I have a very difficult schedule. And I'm sorry that it imposes on everybody else. If it's too difficult, I can also just not be there that meeting, and we can have the board meeting go, without me there. But
My
I
preference
just,
that
I
we
know you,
accommodate Dan as much as we can, not
Right.
because I don't enjoy running meetings, but because I have a small baby that I'm often juggling. And in the
Yeah.
evening, that's really difficult to run a meeting and sort of watch out
Absolutely.
for baby. So as much as we can accommodate Dan until he's a little bit bigger, I would appreciate it. But I
Yep.
totally get it if people can't do Monday or something. I'd just say speak up and let us know.
and I can look around the dates there as well. So in October, the 17th, actually, either Monday or Wednesday, the 17th the 16th or the 18th are the better days for me on that week.
I think that consistency is helpful, like just having it be as much as we can, like on the 1st or the 2nd or the 3rd day of the month is really helpful, day of the week of the month. For me, at least, just so that we know it, like the 1st or the 3rd Monday of the month is fine, or something like that. But I like that approach versus like just picking dates here and there.
Yeah, I would prefer that as well, but my schedule is never consistent. So I work one day, if I work 24 hours, then I'm off 72, then I work 48, then I'm 72, so it moves around constantly. So one week I'm working Monday, Tuesday, the next week I'm working Thursday, and then Saturday, Sunday. It doesn't make sense unless you see it on a calendar, but it's just kind of the way it is. So unfortunately, I don't have the ability to say, yeah, I'll definitely be available without taking vacation, which I'll run out of. So it's impossible for me to say, yeah, it's definitely going to be this day every month. Some months are easier than others, and I'll go a section of time where we have 6 months where it's like really easy to schedule that day, and then because of the way the schedule rotates around, it'll be impossible for a few months, and then it goes back to being easy again because it just misses that day. So I'm sorry about that. I don't have any control over that.
Okay. Maria, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think consistency is probably helpful for especially the teachers and community. But I also, it's important for us to have our chair, and I wonder also about not having Thad and Avelia here, and wonder if maybe we should pick this conversation up at a later date.
I just don't want to push it too far. This is something we're supposed to set in August, and we didn't because we wanted to wait for the new board members. And there's going to be 1 or 2 people missing most meeting. Like, I think that's pretty predictable. It's not to say it couldn't change. Like, I think we should have at least set our October meeting so that we have it, and have a proposal. We can come back next meeting if Thad say it doesn't work for them, but I would prefer not to wait another month to set our meeting date.
So if we want to keep it on Tuesdays, October 10th works for me. If you want to just trying not to move it off the day of the week. It's earlier in the month.
10th is fine with me.
Should we look down at second Tuesdays of the month and how many of them work for you? Does it work for you in November? Because then that avoids Thanksgiving as well.
Second Tuesday.
14th.
14th.
I'm working, unfortunately. That day.
I mean, if excuse me, if Julia, would you feel comfortable acting, leading the meetings on days that Dan is unavailable?
I think just that having to manage the new baby. So November doesn't work. December, because of the holiday week, sorry, I'm not trying to jump ahead, but just trying to look at ones that actually do work. December 12th works. That's a Tuesday.
That works for me.
Okay.
Oh. Actually, I said that, but I'm going to be in Mexico. That doesn't work.
Okay.
So
December
I'm
12th.
not key. I'm just talking out loud.
Okay. The next week after that is, well, it's not Christmas, so it's another week after that, but it gets close to there. So the 19th would be, it's the day that I work. I'm sorry. If I could, I can try and move some of those around to ahead of time. I can ask for a trade, basically, and see if somebody else will work the day, and I'll work their day for them.
Dan, I think the second week of December will probably work for most people except for Emily, right? Were you just looking at the third week of December?
I think
if you get deeper in December, you probably lose more of us on vacations. So I would stick with the second week.
So December 12th then.
That works.
Okay, and then November, to try and go back to that.
I can try to lead November. I just, there would just be some grace required, but I do think as much as we can, having Dan, having you available, especially as we do the ED search, will be important. So I don't know.
I can, what I can do is I can tune in when I'm at work. I just have no guarantee that I can be there because any number of calls come in. So I think it'd be foolish to have me try and lead it, but I can definitely try and be in the meeting. I just can't, I'll just get a call that comes in and I have to leave and go on the call. So if we did it the 14th of November, that's a Tuesday, that keeps it on a consistent kind of path there. And Julia, I will do my best to have all the stuff set up ahead of time for you. So all you have to do is just lead it, and you don't have to do all the work leading up to it. And then I'll be there in the meeting. I just won't. I can't lead it.
Do you have your calendar into the next year too?
Yeah, let me see. One second. It's not in Outlook yet, but I do have a picture of the calendar, so I can pull that up. I don't have it actually. I'm sorry. I have it through December right now. But I can get it and send some more dates out.
Should we agree to have it be the second Tuesday of the month, except as we decide to modify it with sufficient public notice? I mean, we do this happens,
Yeah.
We have regularly scheduled meetings that we then we notify the public and everyone that, hey, we're actually not going to meet this day, we're going to meet a different day. And we typically moved up the June meeting because we talk about the budget to the second week instead of the third week. But if we have it already set for the second week, then that's taken care of, and we can just be consistent throughout the year.
So you're saying second Tuesday or just second week or second Tuesday?
I'm saying second Tuesday.
Okay.
So just to put another perspective out there, I feel like even if it's not on a consistent date of the month, if we have the dates published for folks ahead of time, and they know that it's going to be on the 10th in November and the 20th in January, it doesn't matter so much as long as those dates are out there. I feel like it's more disruptive to change it a week or a couple days in advance. It's way more disruptive for my life. Like I wouldn't necessarily be able to say, oh yeah, I can be there on Wednesday instead of Monday. But if I have it ahead of time, I can schedule around it.
Okay.
So my vote would be, even if we're picking completely different days of the week, as long as we're publishing those dates well in advance that people can plan, that would be my vote. What do others think?
I'm flexible. I already have enough caveats to my schedule anyway that I'm happy to be flexible however people want to do it.
I'm flexible, whatever you guys want.
Yeah,
So how about for now we publish these next 3 months, October, November, December, and then we prep to publish, and I'll get my schedule for next year, and then we can set a generally second Tuesday of the month, along with that published schedule, and then within the next week I'll get the rest of those out so we can get them to Daphne. They can be posted.
If we're gonna do that, Dan, then do we want to move that November one so that it's on a day you're not working? Because people will have 2 months notice of the date.
I can do that.
So then does November 10th work? Or is that the 13th? November 13th, it's a Monday. Does that work for you, Dan?
I work a double, so a 48-hour shift Monday and Tuesday. But the previous week works, or the end of the previous week, so the 6th, 7th, or the 10th. 10th is a Friday, or the Wednesday the 15th works for me.
I vote Wednesday the 15th.
Okay. How does everyone else feel about that?
Good with me.
Okay.
So we've got October 10th, November 15th, and December 12th.
Correct.
Cool.
And then I'll get next year's schedule. I don't think it's been printed yet, so I'll get next year's schedule though, and send that out. I can look out. I can put it in my Outlook, and it'll project out for me what days that I work and don't work. But I'm sorry for all the difficulties with this. This is a little window into my life.
No need to apologize.
Yeah, scheduling is always hard.
and this is all voluntary work.
Yes.
Thanks, Dan. And
Okay. Well,
everybody.
we at least have the next till the end of the year sorted out, and we'll after within the next month we'll get the rest of those dates through email, and we'll bring that up in the next board meeting. Does that work for everyone?
Can I just task maybe, I don't know, Marie as secretary, or is there somebody that's willing to get these dates to Daphne in a document that then she can update the document that's on our website? Because the one on the website is like from 2019, and also make sure that the MTA has it.
Yeah, I'll be sure to get that to Daphne along with the OSBA training dates.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
And then what about another task was updating the flow of the board meetings, that calendar. I'm happy to help, but I don't know any of it yet.
So I'll send out the kind of what the calendar is based off of from years past to all board members, and then you can see what we have there, and then we'll add in. Julie and I were tasked with working with our recruiter, but I'd like to add somebody else into that. Anybody else who's interested in being a part of that search process, setting the process up with the recruiter. So if anybody else feels interested in doing that, I'd like to reach out over email and have somebody just whoever wants to volunteer to be a part of that. It would be great to have more eyes on that process. And we can start updating the calendar for this year based off of what we're looking at, and then we'll keep the old calendar so you can know what years in the future should look like, but at least you'll have the coming year set up.
Dan, I think maybe we should have a motion to task a couple people, Emily and somebody else, to update the board, create a board calendar for the year that we can bring to the next meeting.
Okay.
I'm happy to be involved or not, either way. But I think maybe either you or I, since we also have the information about the executive director search should be included.
Okay. And tying in Marie based on OSBA training and stuff like that. So I'll make a motion that we have Emily work with either the board chair or co-chair in concert with Marie and the OSBA calendar for our training to create a calendar for this current year. Is that clear enough, Julia?
I think maybe it should be one of us so that we don't have four, which is a public meeting. Degree.
Yeah, I was just saying, well, either you or I, whoever's available to work with her, rather than that, so it doesn't exclude somebody. So two people working on it, but make sure you get the dates from Marie, and whether it's Julia or myself, whoever's available at the moment. Does that sound appropriate?
I
So
will, I will work with Marie and reach out to either Dan or Julia to get the dates for the executive stuff.
Perfect.
I think Emily and I can, Emily, you want to work on the calendar? We'll be the calendar team and we will reach out.
That was great.
Perfect.
So I'll clarify that motion then. I'll make a motion that Marie and Emily work on the board calendar. Can I get a second? Thank you, Julie. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, we're getting work done here. That brings us to our last it's committee reports, item number 14 or 15 now. We have facilities and fundraising are really only our two kind of standing committee. I think actually we're down to just facilities, but I wanted to bring in fundraising because McKenna, you're very active there. So Marie.
Hey everybody. The meeting is 8 o'clock, past 8 o'clock, so I'm going to keep it real brief. I'm sure everybody sees there's quite a bit going on at the campus. The facilities, nutrition facilities operations and logistics manager has been working with the team moving the modular. There's temporary fencing around the annex property now. Brent Foster sealed up the roof of the modular yesterday. Thank you, Brent. And things are moving along. There's some additional exterior as well as minor interior work that remains to be completed in the modular. An ADA compliant ramp will need to be installed. The electrical is being serviced and a new transformer is needed. So the facilities manager is working on that. The internet is being serviced, water and repiping and hookup to the modular and annex property is scheduled for Thanksgiving to be as least disruptive as possible to students and staff. And as Matt Henry mentioned earlier, there's there's a need for a PA system, and the facilities manager is currently looking into that. The news camera system is up and running, and the facilities manager has found some new blind spot and is going to be procuring more cameras. And the city also would like to thank the Mosier Community School for having received a letter of intent from the city manager to potentially utilize the annex building, and understands that that it's not possible. And I was asked by the facilities manager and the city to express gratitude to the school. So with that, if anyone has any questions.
I just had one thing I noticed today. I know it's temporary, so we have our fencing that's up, but it blocks the door for the clothing drop-off box thing that's down there for them to get the clothing out when they go to retrieve it. So I have the number for that company. I'm wondering long term if we just need to find a new place for that box in the city, or maybe even across this. I don't know where, but it's running out of room on our property. So I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to deal with that. We can't be much closer to the hydrant. You know, we'll have permanent fencing, and at some point there's a sidewalk. At some point it will not have space there anymore. So I do like the fact that it's there, but at the same time we're running out of space for that. So it's not a big issue we need to really go over tonight, but I just wanted to bring it up as a point for the future.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's important to get on the radar, and it will need to be addressed. I don't know anything about that when it was first installed, but I think a discussion should be had about that drop-off box.
Julia, you have your hand up.
I'm curious if we found a solution to the hole that was created by moving Hillside. And there was a little bit of traffic about that. But I wonder, it seemed like maybe it wasn't going to be a small budget item, if that's something we need to decide on.
I talked with, you're right if I speak about this for a minute, Marie.
Oh, please.
I talked with Brent for a while about it. We got some bids. I have been getting a lot of rock and gravel for my house build. So I kind of have a contact there. So I reached out to get a bid from that person, and there were a few bids that came in. I think the lowest just for pit run and fill was around $8,000 to $9,000 for that cost. I feel like we could probably slow the process on that to make sure we figure out what the best use of that space is before we just rush to fill it. Obviously, it's a safety issue by having a hole open, but if we can keep it coned off, I don't want to throw money at it and have not thought about some other option. So that was my point of view. Go ahead.
We heard a bunch of people asking if when the Mosier pool is coming in, and I thought that was a wonderful idea. So
that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think for now, having the temporary fencing is a good solution. And also, thankfully, there are no children that need to go to that back area. So for peace of mind, I think until we arrive at a solution, we should just continue to make sure it's well cordoned off.
One thing to note about that area out there is that forever I've been told that there was no plumbing. Like we didn't have plumbing in those portables forever. The kids didn't have bathrooms. They had to come across the street. After we removed it, you look in the hole, there's a sewer hookup pipe and a water supply line in the hole. So the whole time we could have just paid and put plumbing in the buildings. It was there the whole time. So it's pretty frustrating, I think, just that, we could have solved that problem a long time ago. It was put in who knows how long ago. So just disappointing not to have that information. I think that's a lot of, as boards go, we don't none of us have all the information. So, but there's plumbing and there's sewer and water supply hookup out there already. So it's an option to, as we're thinking about that area, is something we have available out there. Sorry, Marie, I wasn't trying to hijack your section.
No, not at all. There's so much happening that I'm grateful that you are keeping abreast. And yeah, there are certain projects you'll know more about than me. So it takes all of us.
Certainly. Were there any other facilities questions for Marie?
Dan, could I just add, as you're ironically talking about it, I noticed probably 10 minutes ago, 4 or 5 people walking out, not near that hole, but I hate to press people, but I think that type of decision probably should be pushed for maybe next meeting.
Okay.
I'm just concerned about liability, if someone not under the right control of their facilities falls in there, we're still probably going to be liable.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other points or questions for Marie or anything about the facilities stuff we have going on? Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
On that note, maybe it would be worthwhile for us or someone to check in with Pace to see, you know, how much, what the
Cost.
best way for us to move
Protect
forward,
yourselves.
protect ourselves. Thank you.
I am going to be meeting with one of those folks, I think this next week. So whatever you guys would like, I could certainly look into that topic.
Okay. Okay, that brings us to fundraising with McKenna. I think that kind of goes together with Tiger's Den a lot of times too, with a lot of the projects.
And now I'll add the pool fundraising. So
Yes.
work on that. But no, I'm going to meet with Brent this week. He's got such a successful track record with these grants that we're going to add that to our efforts for the playground. I know Dawn brought up asking for a front office change. And so we'll just find a way to make these things happen through our Tiger's Den volunteer work. So I'll give you more updates as we set up that plan.
Thank you,
What do you
McKenna.
mean by a front office change?
During our last in-person meeting, Dawn had mentioned needing funds to move Daphne's front office up at the top down to that lower level where the student pickup is. And that would alleviate the multiple points of entry. And so there would be several walls and, just to retrofit that for their needs is my understanding, but let me know if I misspoke.
Oh, that's right on. The move to the lower level room that's on the east side of the building will act as the main point of entry for the school. And the gate will be just after those double doors, right where the ramp begins and where the basketball court is. So the idea is that anybody who comes to visit the school will have to present themselves at those doors, which makes the school and the campus more safe. And in order to make that room useful for an office space, I believe there's maybe a partition wall, there's some drywall, there's some modifications that need to be made, hence requiring maybe close to $10,000. Does that give you a better picture, Emily?
Yes, thank you very much.
And she did clarify, I spoke with her afterward, that $10,000 was the low end of that funding that she would probably need. So she'd need to take a closer look at it, but it could be closer to 20 to 30,000, depending on what the plan will be. So.
And just on that fundraising note, Matt and I received an email this week from Sarah Beninger, who's one of our teachers, and she somehow got in contact with this company out of Portland that's a national company that funds charter schools and finds ways to get money for charter schools. So McKenna, I'll forward you that email so you have that contact.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Any other questions for fundraising or facilities? All right. Thank you, everyone. It's 8:15. It's a good meeting, a long meeting, but I'm sure we all have families to get to. So thank you so much.
Thanks, folks.
Good night.
Good night.